Hey guys, how's it going? Kripparrian here. So we finally got the card dump, the remaining 40-ish or whatever cards out of the Knights of the Frozen Throne expansion, and well, they're pretty cool. There's some really cool cards. I think more so than any expansion I've seen so far, there are a lot more cards that are like maybe good. And the maybe good cards are what creates the adventure, the discovery, the deck testing and deck building and all that I really love. It's kind of why I enjoy these releases. And also there's like the fewest dumpster tier textless cards that we've had in an expansion so far. There's certainly a few bad ones, but they're very few. All right, let's kick it off. We got a lot of cards to go over. First off, Web Weave. 5 cost, summon 2, 1/2 poisonous spiders. Well, that's pretty okay. They were saying how at 4 cost, this card was one of the best cards in Druid, so at 5 it's probably balanced. Well, probably, but balanced cards don't usually lead the meta, so I'd have to say it's a good arena card, and likely about that's all it's going to do. Serenite Chain Gang, 4 cost 2/3 taunt, battlecry, summon a copy of this minion. This is a pretty powerful card. If you think about it, Shaman runs this Frost Wolves, which are a 3 cost overload 2. This is 4, which in my opinion is about the same, but this has 2 advantages. First off, if you buff it, you get, twice the effect of that buff, like the hand buff mechanics that is, and if you're playing evolutions, it costs 2 more mana than the Frost Wolf. So even in Shaman, if you're playing Evolution Shaman, this might be better than Frost Wolf. So that's actually very good. This is quite a powerful card. Happy Ghoul, 3 cost 3/3, cost 0 if your hero was healed this turn. So yeah, not bad. I mean, if you're playing Priest, you just heal your hero. If you took some damage on turn 1 or turn 2, if the player maybe went first against you. 2 mana 3/3, pretty good. Tempo this out a little bit later, pretty good. It's a pretty good card. Pretty good cards are notoriously not included in most constructed decks, but who knows? Maybe there's going to be a lot of decks that heal a lot. You'll see as the cards get revealed here that there are a lot of control cards, but the only real control mechanic that's new and powerful in this set is the lifesteal mechanic. So that might be more widespread than we think. Despicable Dreadlord, 5 cost 4/5 demon. At the end of your turn, deal 1 damage to all enemy minions. So I think just when you play this on 5, it is about as good as Dread Infernal Slam on 6, but it has an end of turn effect, so it's repetitive, and the repetitive effect is probably going to push this card over Dread Infernal level. Now, Dread Infernal is near the top of Arena for Warlock, so this is going to be one of the best Warlock Arena cards, and if it's one of the best Warlock Arena cards, and it's a demon, we have some demon synergy, and it's a repetitive effect to counter aggro, well, it might actually be constructed level of power. Forge of Souls, 2 cost, drop 2 weapons from your deck. Well, as you know, with the new Warrior Hero that has absolutely nothing to do with this card, well, it's interesting. There are a few weapon synergies. It's difficult to make a deck solely based on weapons, but if you're playing like a face warrior deck, this is going to give you a lot of face damage. Snow Fury Giant, 11 cost 8/8. First giant that we're seeing here that is a Shaman card. Now I actually thought this was an elemental, but I guess not. This is an official image from Blizzard, so I guess it's not an elemental. What is interesting is, once again, it's a Shaman giant. We haven't had a class giant before. The overload mechanic is really interesting. There are some cards that have extreme overload numbers. We're talking like Elemental Destruction, which is a 3 cost with overload 5. You can really cheat out this minion in some situations, and even if you don't, in mid to late game, a 0 cost 8/8 is usually what wins games. So I feel it's maybe a little bit clunkier than Arcane Giant, but depending on what works in Shaman, maybe not. Rattling Rascal, 4 cost 2/2. Battlecry summons a 5/5, Death Rattle summons one for your opponent. So I saw this card, I'm like, yeah, it's alright. You get a 4 mana 7/7, but, then your opponent gets 5/5, so it's really a 4 mana 2/2, but you get the tempo lead, which kind of makes it a little bit better than that. So a little bit better than a 4 mana 2/2. When you look at it that way, it's probably not that good, but it was included in a lot of decks they played on stream when they were revealing the cards, and I have to say that It's actually seemingly good. There's a lot of effects that can manipulate the death rattle, and in a lot of cases you can just push for the board, and it's difficult to punish this card without punishing others as well, as you'll see. We have the Warrior Hero card, Scourgelord Garrosh. 8 cost, gain 5 armor, just like all the other hero cards. And you equip a 4/3 Shadowmourne that also damages adjacent minions. The hero power that you get is 1 damage to everything. And there's some positive synergy on your side if you build a deck around it, and it generally is pretty decent to keep doing that effect against your opponent. So, you know, it's pretty good. My main concern with this card is, so we know Control Warrior as the all-time dominant warrior deck. Now, I know recently it's kind of lost its crown to like Pirate Warrior and all that, but aggro decks come and go. Control Warrior has generally stayed since the beginning of Hearthstone. So I look at this card, I don't see it as an aggro card. I see it as like a control type of card. Losing the armor up is a really big deal. You also have to keep in mind that the Control Warrior deck, at least traditionally, runs your opponent out of resources. Your opponent's not going to play a whole bunch of stuff all at once, because then if they do, they're going to lose because you have Brawl. So if they're not playing a whole bunch of stuff, whirling his board is not that efficient. You know, if your opponent's playing 1 card at a time, your hero power is just pretty bad hero power. Like, I would say it's worse than armor up. If your opponent's playing 1 minion at a time, and you generally don't have that much synergy with your own minions, it's a bad hero power. So how good is 8 cost 4/3 Shadowmourne with AoE attacks and 5 armor? That's okay, but I mean, are we talking about an 8 cost okay card? Well, I don't know about that. Obviously, it could just bring out a whole new self-damaging deck. There's a lot of cards that do that, so maybe that's really good, but it looks like a synergy required like late game tempo deck for Warrior. I just don't see it, but who knows. Drakkar E Enchanter, 3 cost 1/5. Your end of turn effects trigger twice. Well, that's pretty insane. There's some of the most powerful effects in the entire game are end of turn effects. Now, a lot of them are in the wild format with Emperor and Ragnaros and all that. So, you know, maybe this card won't be that big of a deal right now in standard. But, you know, even then it might be. There's still some very powerful end of turn effects, but it's really going to shine in Wild. So if you ever get bored of Standard playing a new expansion, head over to Wild and try some Drakkar E Enchanting. Should be pretty good. Doomerang. Rogue card, throw your weapon at a minion, it deals its damage, then returns to your hand. So I think some people didn't really understand this card. I think the main way that you use this card is if you have a weapon that's a high durability weapon, you can basically extend its durability and use a 1 mana removal. So just let's talk about Assassin's Blade, 3 damage, 4 durability card. You can attack 3 times before attacking the last time. You Doomerang, 1 mana, hit something for 3, and the fact that you return that weapon to your hand is a positive effect. Then this card is really powerful. Now, I actually tweeted about this card. You know, I'm not sure if it's good or not if we see this many rogue cards that are weapon-centered. So, like, it's just so easy to counter weapon-based decks that I just don't feel they're ever going to topple the meta unless they're just face decks with crazy early game, which you don't see the rogue deck doing. So, yeah, it's a good card in a long chain of pretty good weapon manipulative rogue cards, but I just feel it's all for nothing. Night Howler. So this is probably as no text as it gets in this expansion. 4 cost 3/4. When this minion takes damage, gain 2 attack. So like, okay, so let's say it gets hit once and survives, then it's like a 4 mana 5/4. And yeah, in Fairy Tale Magical Land, where it gets hit twice and is still alive, it's a 7 whatever's left on its health. Wow, you know, oh, give me a break. It's terrible. All right, Necromancer, however, is really interesting. So 5 cost 2/2 Death Rattle. If it's your opponent's turn, summon an 8/8 skeleton. Holy moly! So this is a card like a few others that not only punishes your opponent clearing the board, which I think is the main thing that it does. Like, if your opponent has, like, you know, Volcanic Potion or Blizzard, he's just not able to play it. That is huge. But again, that kind of favors mid-range or aggressive decks. Because control decks kind of need to use board clears effectively. And they're not going to be able to if people are playing this card. Now, in terms of constructed, it might even be good enough. But in terms of arena, it's just going to be insane. This is going to be one of the biggest anti-mage cards that I've ever seen. It's just so ridiculous. It's also pretty good if you can grant them taunt if you're playing like Argus or Sun Fury. And again, in a lot of those cases, you're playing like a zoo kind of aggressive deck. It's a really, really powerful zoo card. Wicked Skeleton, 4-cost 1/1, Battlecry, gain +1/+1 for each minion that died this turn. Overall, not bad. I mean, again, if you're playing like a zoo deck, if you're playing arena, it can be okay. It's pretty easy to just drop 3 minions like all at once, and yeah, if you do that, it's fine. If you can do more than that, it's better than fine. It's alright as an arena card. Yeah. Deadscale Knight, 1-cost 1/1 Murloc with Lifesteal. Yeah, not much to say about that. Sure. Wretched Tiller, 1-cost 1/1. When this minion attacks, deal 2 damage to the enemy hero. So it's kind of like a 1 mana 3/1, except the trade's worse. Is that good? Not really. We have Spectral Pillager, 6-cost 5/5, and the combo deals damage equal to the number of cards you've played this turn. Now, I am not sure. I think it's a combo effect. The combo effect, I think, triggers before the minion actually gets technically played. So I think it would not include this card. So if you played one other card, then you play this, it deals 1 damage, not 2. So that's kind of weak. It's on the weak side, but there's probably going to be some deck that finds a way to play just insane number of cards in one turn and do a massive Spectral Pillager. You know what? I might be the kind of person to try out that deck, so I'll keep you guys up to date. Tuskar Fisherman, 2-cost 2/3. Battlecry gives a friendly minion spell damage +1. This is a superb arena 2-drop. In terms of constructed, spell damage has been a pretty big deal in the past, but we're starting to see some next level on the power scale of endgame. So I'm not sure if buffing your spell by a little bit, I don't think that counts as late game anymore. So I think if this card came out like 2 expansions ago, it might actually be constructed quality, but I have my doubts about the future of that in constructed. But again, as far as arena is concerned, really solid. Then we have 3-cost 4/4. The Battlecry freezes all of your other minions. That's not a bad arena card if you can find a way to take advantage of freezing your own stuff. And we've seen a few cards, but they seem a bit clunky to me. So again, I kind of doubt the constructed viability of this card, but it's a solid arena card. It's kind of a funny one. Grim Necromancer, 2-cost 2/4, summons 2 1/1 skeletons. So again, a pretty low power level 4-drop, but it's different. You know, if you're running a deck that you really just want to fill the board constantly, if you're running an arena deck where you just want to get some kind of face damage, this is a pretty good card. So I very much prefer cards like these to textless garbage. So this is good. This is situationally interesting. Arrogant Crusader, 4-cost 5/2, and when it dies on your opponent's turn, it gets a 2/2 Ghoul. So a 2/2 Ghoul is not that big of a deal, but a 4-cost 5/2 is relatively powerful. I don't consider it that strong of an arena card because it's so easy to kill, and Paladin is mostly about having a board, not so much pushing for damage. But in constructed, that can be very different. If you have a lot of Divine Shield effects, I can see this being pretty powerful. If you have a lot of hand buffs, I can see this being pretty powerful as well. So we'll have to see, but it looks like a little bit underpowered. Death Axe Punisher, 4-cost 3/3, gives a random lifesteal minion in your hand +2/+2. So let's say that it does that. It's like a 4-cost 5/5 with like negative tempo because you get the tempo in a later turn, which is kind of bad. So I don't see this card being good unless we're talking about some like serious combo wombo actions that I haven't imagined yet. Grave Shambler, 4 cost 4/4. When your weapon is destroyed, gain +1/+1. It's an elemental, which makes the elemental synergy kind of keep up with the prior expansion, which is really good. I think this is a solid Shaman and Rogue card as far as Arena is concerned, but everything else probably on the weak side. Bone Baron, 5 cost 5/5. The death rattle adds 2 1/1 skeletons to your hand. It's a rogue card, and the reason it's a rogue card is there is a little bit of the expansion focusing on playing a whole bunch of stuff in one turn, and this helps you get there. But yeah, 5 cost 5/5. It's pretty hard to see that being played. Exploding Bloat Bat. So a really cool looking card, but again, the power level seems on the weak side. 4 cost 2/1 beast. Death rattle deals 2 damage to enemy minions. So it's going to be a delayed effect. Unless your opponent is playing like aggro or zoo, they're going to be able to play around this. But again, if there's just a ton of aggro and zoo decks, then I guess this is really good. So who knows? And then we have a card very much like Egg Napper, 3 cost 3/1. The death rattle. If it's your opponent's turn, which again, they're generally going to have a bit of an issue with a 3 cost 3 drop. You get a 2/2 Ghoul, so fine. It's very similar to a previous card, but it makes use of the new mechanics. Sure, why not? This is an interesting one. 6 cost 6/6, not what you want, but it discards all weapons from your hand and gains their stats. Yeah, I don't see this card being that good because it doesn't have any other ability to really push the fact that it's a big minion. Like, if it had cannot be targeted, or hopefully not, like, stealth or charge or something like that. But, it just needed a little bit extra. And it doesn't have that. And just big minions that do nothing else are never really going to work in Constructed unless they cost 3 or less mana. So yeah, it's an arena card. 6 mana 6/6 for a class without weapons is fine, and possibly for a class even with weapons. Sometimes you get stuck on too many and it's actually pretty decent. So it's probably a good arena card. Toxic Arrow. I really love this card. 2 cost Hunter spell, deals 2 damage to minion, but you can hit your own, and if it survives, you give it poisonous, and you can kill an even bigger minion. So really cool. Flexible removal. I mean, this is basically how control decks work, but again, my issue with that is most of the other classes already have cards that kind of follow that theme, and Hunter is pretty behind. This is probably going to go a long way, but I'm still not so sure about Control Hunter. Keening Banshee, 4 cost 5/5. When you play a card, remove the top 3 cards from your deck. So again, that's really not a big deal, especially if you're playing Arena. You don't really care about losing cards from your deck because you're just never really going to go to fatigue, and you are in control of that ability. So actually, it's a pretty good card. Arena 4 mana 5/5 is strong. In Constructed, not that strong. So Arena card. Death Revenant, 5 cost 3/3, and the battle cry gives it +1/+1 for each damaged minion. So I saw this in the demo game earlier today, and I'm like, wow, that card kind of sucks. But then they set up a board, they played it, and it was like a 5 cost 8/8, and didn't seem like that spectacular of a board. So it seems like if you're playing like that warrior deck, where it just does small damage constantly to stuff, it's actually a pretty good card, but I don't know how consistently you can set this up for it to be a good card. Because if you're just top deck moding and there's like nothing on the board that it triggers off of, it's really terrible. Venomancer, 5 cost 2/5 poisonous. So it's a pretty strong card. You might not think so, but we had the legendary 2/8 for 6 Myexna all that time ago. And that was a pretty good card. That card is really annoying to deal with. This card is decent bit worse than that, but it's in the common slot. Again, 5 mana card doesn't do very much for Constructed. It's not seeing play. But in terms of Arena, I think we're going to see a lot of this card. This card is going to often trade with a 3 or 4 drop, survive, and trade into another thing. And that other thing might mean that your opponent doesn't play their good 6 drop on turn 6. So it's a really high power level in Arena. Spellweaver, 6 cost 4/4 plus 2 spell damage. So that's pretty interesting. But it costs 6 mana. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I talked about spell damage. I don't know if spell damage is the future of late game. Yeah. It's on the weak side. If you really need 2 spell damage, use Evolve Kobold. If you really need like a big minion, you play another big minion. This is kind of a compromise, but it doesn't really fit any extreme role, and Constructed is generally about pushing the extremes. Nash, 3 cost, Druid card, give your hero 3 attack and 3 armor. Seems pretty bad, but whatever. In Arena, removal is premium. That's removal. Dark Conviction, 2 cost Paladin card, set of minions, attack and health 3. So it's not bad. Often, I mean, we played with Keeper of Uldaman in the past. Does a really good job of dealing with big minions. We're going to see a lot of big minions in this expansion, particularly in Arena because so many of them are common. So it's probably a pretty high power level card. It's just buffing your own stuff. Using a card to do that. So imagine you had a 1/1 with good abilities. Would you include this or would you include other buffs? Like you trade off flexibility with this card for a lower power level, but I don't know how much flexibility counts if you're playing a one-dimensional Paladin deck. It's difficult to say. Tainted Zealot, 2 cost 1/1, Divine Shield, spell damage +1. So yeah, people played really janky spell damage minions in the past, and this is definitely better than Kobold. And if you're playing Kobold, which is 2 cost 2/2, spell damage +1, this is straight up better. If you're playing Kobold, you are playing it for the spell damage effect, not for its stats. You want to stick around the board as long as you can, and sometimes you just need to combo it for 2 mana. This does the 2 mana combo part, and it does the sticking around part better because it has at least 2 health. So Divine Shield is at least 1 health, and it has the 1 health as well. So I think it's actually a pretty strong card. Well, if spell damage kind of is required in the meta at least. Bloodworm, 5 cost 4/4, Beast with Lifesteal. Interesting card. Again, I don't know how prevalent Lifesteal is going to be, but if Lifesteal is not used, I don't see how Control deck's going to stop aggro decks, so I imagine Lifesteal is probably stronger than we realize, so this card might just very well be a lot stronger than we realize, and it's in the common slot, so maybe it makes a big impact in Arena. It is an interesting one. It's a 1 cost 2/1, and it gives a friendly minion 1 attack. So if you guys remember Abusive Sergeant, it's kind of like that, right? It's better to play on turn 1 because it's a 2/1 rather than a 1/1. It'll often deny your opponent's 2-drop, which is actually very powerful, and the effect is permanent. So if you're playing like Lifesteal stuff, if you're playing cards that really are much better if they're buffed, so like the new Shaman Taunt, the 2/8 Taunt, you can just make that 3/8 Taunt. Suddenly that's a really good card for that mana cost. It's actually a perfect follow-up because you'll be overloaded for 3 on turn 4 on that. So, I think this card might see quite a lot of play. Cards that are considered good 1-drops always make their way into some kind of aggro deck, and I do believe this is one of those cards. And even then, I think it's good enough to see play in Arena. Arena, people are a bit wary about 1-drops. They really take only the premium ones, but I believe this is close or is a premium 1-drop. Arthas, 4 cost 2/2 Beast, and Death Rattle adds a random Death Knight card to your hand. So when I first saw this, I'm like, oh my god, you're going to get another Death Knight? You're going to get a hero card? No, that's not what you get. You get one of these 8 puppies. You get Frostmourne, which is absolutely insane. Yep. You get Army of the Dead, which not really that insane most of the time. You get Doom Pact, which again, if you're playing a control battle, maybe not that insane most of the time. You get Death Grip, which literally takes the minion out of your opponent's deck, which can honestly nullify a control deck's or a combo deck's win condition. That's like Dirty Rat level, right? You got Death Quell, which is extremely high power level for 2, given its flexibility. You have Obliterate, which is pretty pretty high tempo removal. It's not bad. You have Anti-Magic Shell, which is absolutely game-winning if your opponent doesn't have a board clear, and if you're playing cards that, void some board clears, well, that's a big problem. Death and Decay also very strong. So you can tell that Death Knight cards are, on average, extremely high power level. My main issue with that is they do such different things, and some of them are pretty damn awful. Some others are just absolutely insane. It feels like, Cabal Chemist level stuff. If you get like the 1 in 10, or in this case 1 in 8 that wins the game, it's kind of a cheesy way to win. But who knows? I don't know how good these cards are going to be, because I think Silence might rise up again, and I think Priests are going to be pretty viable, and I think every Priest is going to do like double Potion of Madness, so Arthas is going to have a new owner a lot of the time, I imagine. I think it's going to get a bit countered, but it's a really cool card, and I'll certainly be playing it anyway. And then the other way you get Death Knight cards, the Lich King. So Lich King has a pretty insane entrance. He like freezes up the board and has like all these cool effects, and they did him justice. All right, I thought that Hearthstone would like cartoonify the Lich King. I'd be really pissed off about that, because that really was the highlight for me playing the Warcraft games in the past. But no, I think he is well represented in Hearthstone, and I think it is a pretty damn strong card. So you get the Ironbark, 8 cost, 8/8 taunt, not bad, right? We also get the end of turn effect to give you Death Knight cards. So even if it only gave you just one Death Knight card, I think some decks would play that. But it gives you repetitive Death Knight cards. This is insane. The Lich King is a super powerful card. It's really good in a control deck because it also has taunt, so it does well against aggro decks. So, basically, the Lich King is going to see play unless aggro just completely demolishes every other deck. That's about it. Other than that, Lich King is going to see play, so if you like the card, give it a try. Warlock Hero. 10 cost. Battlecry, summon all friendly demons that died this game. So it's kind of like Ghoul Zoth. I like it. I like it a lot. I wonder if there's actually a way to combine the Zoth with Ghoul Zoth, so you could have the doubles. Okay, I don't know. You get the idea. It's a really cool card. I mean, if you have one 8 cost demon and you play this card, you get 5 armor, you get the 8 cost demon back, and it changes your hero power into deal 3 damage, gain 3 life. Right? So this card's just crazy. So anything but an aggro warlock would include this card. Just any other warlock. Now, as we've seen in this expansion, that might not mean much. There might be the case that no warlock is viable, and that would be sad. But I'm going to be playing it anyway. We have the Druid Hero. It looks relatively weak, but again, it seems like these are just good cards. It seems weak compared to the other hero cards, but what does that really matter? It's 7 cost, which is kind of a weird number. You get to choose if you want 2 poisonous guys or 2 taunt guys. Poisonous guys are 1/2s, taunt guys are 1/5s, I believe. You get the 5 armor. And your hero power is okay. You get 3 attack or you get 3 armor. Choosing between the two is kind of lame, because on average, 1.5 attack, 1.5 armor, that's not even just a card level of a buff for your hero power. So on the weak side, but Blizzard said how some of the Druid cards needed to be tuned. So I imagine Druid as a whole kind of works in some way. We'll have to see what that way is. Uther of the Ebon Blade. Man, this is insane. So you get a 5/3 lifesteal weapon. You get the 5 armor, so right away you can gain 10 health for 9. You still have your 5/2 lifesteal if you just hit your opponent in the face. And your hero power is buffed to summoning 2/2 guys, so it's just a card effect. I mean, this is a really powerful card. If those 2/2s make it, you just win the game. I mean, that's pretty ridiculous, right? Your opponent has to constantly put pressure on your board. It's kind of what they have to do against a paladin anyway, but this is next level stuff. I feel this is an extremely powerful card, and it solidifies paladin as a control deck. So keep that in mind. We have Paladin control decks, we have Paladin mid-range decks, we have Paladin tempo decks. I believe we actually have Paladin combo aggro decks with Divine Shield bullcrap. So Paladin's going to be good. Alright, someone's going to play Paladin on the ladder next expansion. Blackguard, 6 cost 3/9. When your hero is healed, deal that much damage to a random enemy minion. Pretty powerful card. If you're using a lot of heals, a lot of lifesteal stuff, it'll trigger a lot, which make it very powerful. Stat-wise, it's actually pretty strong. 3/9 is a lot better than 6/6 if you balance out the stats against aggro, mid-range, or tempo, which is usually most of the ladder. So it's actually pretty damn good stats. It's about Boulder Fist level stats with a potentially really powerful ability. Druid of the Swarm, 2 cost 1/2, can become poisonous, or it can just gain a bunch of health and be taunt. Pretty staple Druid card, I imagine, but we'll see. A lot of the other Druid cards spawn a whole bunch of stuff, so maybe the bigger game-swinging card is going to take over the small ones like this one. Strong Shell Scavenger, 4 cost 2/3, battle card, give your taunt minions +2/+2. Remember, Druid does a pretty good job of swarming the board with low attack, high health taunt minions, so a 2/2 buff might be extremely powerful. But yeah, if you're just buffing one thing, it's on the weak side. I mean, you need to do better than Houndmaster level of power for this to be worth it, because it's a 2/3 with nothing else going for it. Avalanche. Shaman card, freezes a minion and deal 3 to adjacent ones. Love any card that focuses people on the positioning of their minions. I don't even care if this card is going to be good. I imagine it is going to be quite good, but regardless, I love these cards, and I really appreciate that Blizzard keeps making them now. And then finally, we have Drain Soul. 2 cost Warlock card, deal 2 damage to a minion with lifesteal. So this is better than deal 2, gain 2, because if you have any spell damage effects, you can gain more than 2. So if you have like 3 spell damage, it's deal 5, gain 5. It's not like bumping up a Drain Life, which is then deal 5, still gain 2. So it is a pretty damn high power level card. It's removal, and Warlock really needs those heals. So I think this is very strong and probably a staple to anything but a zoo deck. Overall, we've seen an insane number of very interesting cards. Again, as I said at the start of the video, more so than any other expansion. So there's going to be a lot of exploration. There's going to be a lot of fun. Hope you guys join me on expansion launch day. I'll be on right as the expansion comes up, opening, 1,000 plus of Amazon coin packs and all that. So hope you guys join me in seeing these cards, and I eagerly await your opinion on your favorites. Hope you guys enjoyed my review, and I'll see you guys in a bit.